Look you there on yon green hillside of Mokoya Island, above the village of the Kumara growers. The woody hillside where the Tui's voice is heard in the evergreen groves. There stands, on a little hillock, a beautiful, wide-branched totara tree. It looks as if it had been planted there. It stands so dignified and apart. It looks, too, as if it were guarding the little house just below it, in which the Maoris keep the sacred stone image, Matua Tonga. This totara tree is called Teparia Hatupatu, which means Hatupatu's head wreath. It sprang, says legend, from a twig and a head chaplet of green leaves worn by Hatupatu, who performed many marvelous feats of old, 5 centuries ago. And there is another head chaplet tree here. A little to the south of the lone totara tree, above the landing place on the Paperau beach, there is a druidic-looking grove of thickly foliaged karaka and farangi trees. In the middle of the grove is a large tawa tree with a fine spreading head. There is a hollow in the tree butt near the ground. This, say the Maoris, was formerly an iringa ko'iwi, that is to say, a receptacle for the bones of the dead. This tree, like the totara, is known as Teparia Hatupatu. It also sprang, says the legend, from one of the chief's brow wreaths. A mystic grove this, with its air of pagan sanctity. None but tohungas might enter its shade in the old days, and not a Maori will approach the spirit-haunted tawa now. The story of Hatupatu, as I heard it one day of long ago, from the venerable man Tamati Hapimana, when we sat at the foot of the totara tree, it is not under the ban of tapu like the tawa grove, is one of those curious folk tales in which fact and fiction are hopelessly intertwined in characteristic Polynesian fashion. Hatupatu was a youth who came to these shores in the Arawa canoe from the Maori South Sea fatherland. With his elder brothers, Hanui and Haroa, he went inland bird hunting, in the great green forests of the highlands in this strange new country. He scoured the bush, spearing and snaring the pretty koko, the tui or parson bird, the noisy kaka, parrot, and the soft cooing cuckoo, the wood pigeon. What beautiful onomatopoetic names the primitive Maori gave to the forest birds. In the depths of the woods near the Waikato River, he was caught by a frightful female ogre, a harpy whose name was Kura, Kura of the claws, who was feathered like a bird and armed with very long, sharp talons with which she speared her prey in the bush. You may see her presentment carved on the doors of some Maori communal halls in the Rotorua country. Half woman, half bird, with little birds nestling in her hair or flying about her. Hatupatu was borne off by the feathered giantess to her gloomy home, which was a cave near the top of a rocky mountain above the Waikato River. There the witch lived, and there she had a kind of aviary of tame birds. And in and out of crevices in the rocky walls of the cave played little lizards, each of which had a name given it by Kura of the claws. There she set her latest captive, Hatupatu, bidding him mind the birds while she was out a-hunting, spearing birds with her terrible talons. Hatupatu awaited an opportunity to escape, and one day when Kura of the claws was out in search of food, he fled from the cave dwelling after liberating all the birds. And one of these birds, the riro, the little gray warbler, flew off in search of its mistress, crying and chirruping as it went, O Kura, Hatupatu has gone." And the witch giantess came back to her cave, and seeing that Hatupatu had let her pet birds go free and had moreover killed all the pet lizards he could find, she set out in furious anger to recapture the fugitive. From hill to hill she went on Hatu's trail, half leaping, half flying, her fierce eagle eyes darting this way and that for Hatupatu. The Arawa youth, fortifying himself with powerful incantations, taught him by his elders, and chief of all by Natoro Irangi, the great Tohunga, swiftly crossed mountains and valleys and streams. But the infuriated Kura took whole hills at a stride. She was close on Hatupatu's heels, when in his desperation as he came to a great rock, a round boulder lying at the foot of a Ernie hill, he repeated the most potent charm of all. It was just 2 words, "Matiti matata." At this Maori open sesame, the huge rock straightway split open, revealing a hollow in its heart. Hatupatu leaped in, and the rock closed after him. Kura was just a moment too late. She tore savagely at the boulder with her fearful claws, but Hatu was safe. The witch woman tarried long in the woods above, waiting for Hatupatu to emerge from his rock shelter. At last he did so, and fled northward over the plains and hills toward Rotorua Lake, with Kura again in hot chase. The race went on until the pair came to the Parauru Pass, a narrow ferny valley between the square-topped hill Ofinau and the steep slants of Moerangi Mountain. There, if you go along the Forest Service track between Whakarewarewa and Rotokakahi, you will see masses of boulders, volcanic rocks fallen from the hills above, scattered about the valley. One of these, alongside the road, is curiously marked with deep striae, like the grooves worn in glacier moraine rocks in the alpine country. Those scratches are the marks of Kuranai Tuku's talons as she tore ferociously at Hatupatu when he leaped behind the rock for safety. Just by a hand's breadth did he avoid those spearing claws. The rock refuge gave Hatupatu a moment's breathing space. Then on he fled again, down the Waipa Valley for Whakarewarewa. There in the open ground, Kura once more all but seized the flying Hatupatu. Just at the foot of Pohaturoa Hill, which makes a green background for the steam clouds from the geysers and hot springs of Whakarewarewa, the young man, as he dashed down the valley, came to a great boiling pool of white churning mud. This was the sulfur-belching pool called Whangapipiro. He leaped across it safely and went racing on. But Kuranai Tuku, flying after him, did not see the mud spring until too late. She attempted to leap it, but dropped plop into the horrible pool. Down she sank. The boiling, heaving porridge-like white mud closed over her fierce feathered head. And that was the last of Kura of the Claws. The rejoicing Hatu, thus ridden of his terrible witch of the forest, went on his way to the lake. On the shore of Rotorua, near the place which we now call Sulphur Point, he rested and decked his head with a chaplet of green leaves. Then, plunging into the lake, he turned his face toward the island of Mokoia, where his parents lived. He dived and swam underwater to the island. Halfway across, or rather through the lake, he paused to eat a meal of kakahi, the freshwater bivalve. Then he swam on again. The spot where he halted for his watery feast is known to this day as Te Mauri o Horere a Hatupatu. Hatupatu leaped gladly upon the shore of Mokoia Island, home from his great adventures, and as he landed he threw down his wet head chaplet of foliage. The branchlets took root and grew, and they became those Pohutukawa trees, which grow so grandly on the shore of the sacred island. And in his later adventures, when he followed the warpath and performed many marvelous deeds, he twined his head for the homecoming with green leaves, which grew into trees, such as that tawa yonder in the haunted grove. And noblest of all is the totara, which sprang from a sprig that he wore returning from a war expedition over the forest ranges beyond the Rotoiti-Rotoma chain of lakes. A score of generations has passed since Hatupatu, the wonder worker, set that tender tree there, to adorn the hillside of beautiful Mokoia. And today, when the soft haumatangi, the sweet breeze from the north, stirs its tall head of fadeless green, it whispers the magic meaning name, Hatupatu.